Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the updates directed dev server and it's time to have a look at a new Swedish top tier jet. This is the JA37, or as you may know it, the Viggen, or the Yacht Viggen as it is known. This is going to be rank 7, battle rating 11.0, and it's going to be coming after the Draken that we have in the game. So this is the new top tier Swedish fighter. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this thing for a long time, and I understand why. It's got a lot of nice little intricacies to it, which is pretty cool. The first one is the engine. This is a Svenska Flygmotor RM8B. It has 11,520 kgf behind it. A lot of power for this big old engine. The rest of it is made of fuel, which makes sense since it is a high tier jet. It also has access to a 30mm ACAN, which is sat in the center of the vehicle. Only 150 rounds, so not a ton of rounds behind it, but good enough is probably the way to put it. This thing can go 2,000 kilometers an hour for the stat card, and also has some pretty powerful weapons around it. It does have a radar. The AN/APQ-120 has access to IFF, BVR mode, and also ACM mode with a max range of 60 kilometers. The machine itself has a rocket CCIP and also a cannon CCIP, so for ground attack, I suppose you could use it for that. Generally, the actual ordnance on this thing isn't great for ground attack, so you're probably going to use it more in a fighter role compared to anything else. Armor-wise, there is no armor on the vehicle as of yet. I don't know whether it's going to get any. We'll have to find out. The main strength of the Viggen is its air-to-air capabilities, but it does have access to some rockets. The rockets being M70s. You can't carry a ton of them though, only 24 in total, but they do penetrate quite a lot, and with the CCIP, maybe some people will be able to use them effectively. The major armament on this is the RB-24Js and the RB-71s. The RB-24Js are the AIM-9Ps that we have in game, or at least similar to, and then it also has RB-24s, which are AIM-9Bs, so it at least gets some stock missiles when you get the thing, making it a little bit easier to be able to research through. It also gets access to the RB-71. This is a new semi-active homing radar missile that is coming to the game. Unfortunately, right now on the dev server, it doesn't seem to be performing as well as it should. It is already performing very well, but not as well as it should. As I said, this thing has pretty much the characteristics of some of the best IR missiles we have in game, but at a severely longer range. So you can see the launch range is 50 kilometers, it goes 4 Mach, and has a maximum overload of 30 Gs. These things are going to be insane once they are fully implemented, and right now only the Viggen has access to them, but we do have a few other aircraft in the game that could get them later on. These are steroided up Sparrows is probably the best way of putting them, and I know a lot of people talk about AIM-9Ls, you know, the all aspect IR missiles. These at, you know, decent altitudes are pretty much them, apart from you have to keep radar lock, so definitely going to be very, very useful. When it comes to chaff as well, chaff doesn't seem to actually do great against semi-active radar homing missiles right now. Hopefully that is fixed, because otherwise, you know, these things are going to be terrifying to actually face compared to other missiles around. You may notice something that is the disadvantage of the Viggen though, and that's the fact it doesn't get countermeasures. A lot of vehicles at this BR do have access to countermeasures. The Phantom, for example, gets 90 of them. When it comes to other vehicles as well, even the MiG-27 gets 12 of them. A lot of other top tier vehicles get access to them, but the Viggen does not have any defensive capabilities. It's going to have to rely on its maneuverability of its double delta wing to be able to get it out from missiles, or the speed that it has from its engine, and I've got to be honest with you, I don't think that's going to work too well on it. It does have access to another skin, and I actually prefer that skin. It is the grey camouflage. It is very standard, and I think just looks really, really nice on it. Something about simplicity always makes me feel happy. Generally, the two ideas I like is either contrast or simplicity, and this one has the simplicity angle, and this one has the contrast angle, so both of them work incredibly well. So to give you an idea of the general use of this machine, I'll just throw it in a test flight just to show you some interesting characteristics this thing has. So one of the mechanics they added previously to another Swedish jet is the reverse thrust angle, and the Viggen has the same thing. So you can see there the engine, or the back of it, actually closed up. There's the reverse thrust off, this is it on, and you can actually go backwards with the machine if you want to. You can see right here we are moving backwards. Now this was actually on the SK60B, I believe, in the game, and this is actually used instead of like having the parachute on the Viggen, and also used for short range landing, which is pretty awesome. It also has a fully fledged cockpit at the moment, so it actually has access to a little tactical map, which is really cool. Has access to obviously the radar stations and readouts for the pilot, and everything else is done up beautifully. The whole cockpit itself just looks absolutely wonderful. Whoever made this is, or should be, proud. We also have HD mirrors, which you can change in the graphical settings if you don't want to see them. But you can see the acceleration on the Viggen already is pretty good for its general use. The one thing that must be said about the Viggen is it is a beautiful aircraft. It turns incredibly well, and as I said, the lock-on of the missiles is quite easy to do when aircraft are above you, and the track is not too bad either. These things at the moment are set up so they're basically faster AIM-7s. So as I said, they don't have the 30G overload, I don't think, right now, but I'm sure on launch or on the second dev server they will be set up properly. And once you're done with the semi-active radar homing missiles, you'll also be able to use the AIM-9Ps, which are no slouches. You know, they're not the best missiles around the place, but they're definitely not the worst either. A lot of people look down on them because of the fact they're not the best. You know, Magics obviously are generally better than them, but these are still going to be completely fine for the Viggen to be combat effective in the area of 11.0. The fact that you don't have access to stuff such as flares, though, does kind of hurt the vehicle quite a lot. It pretty much means that you, as a vehicle, are going to have to be on the offensive pretty much all the time in it. If you're ever on the defensive, it's going to be really hard to get away from vehicles, just because of the fact that you don't have flares. You know, you won't be able to stop missiles coming in, and relying on your maneuverability can work a decent amount, but not always compared to other machines. When it comes to the Viggen, there are other variants of it that do have access to countermeasures. I'm sure they'll eventually come to the game, but right now that is not, you know, that is not what's about. Instead, what we have is a machine which is very much focused around the idea of attack and interception instead of the idea of defense and kind of just fighting the enemy from there. And I feel that it's going to be really good at that, using it as a missile platform, using it to get into positions to be able to use the very, very good missiles effectively shouldn't be too hard to actually do for the vehicle itself. Like, the radar that it has access to, at least at the moment, should go up to 30 kilometers an hour, which 60 kilometers, by the way, which should be really nice for it. And from there, I think generally it will, you know, do pretty well, even at ridiculous ranges that it may find itself. Hopefully in the future, when we get other variants of the Viggen, it'll be able to take its place as a fully great top tier vehicle. But I just feel like for the time being, when it comes to this vehicle here, it may just have too much of a downside when it comes to its what would you call it? I've forgotten the damn name. When it comes to the defensive capabilities of the aircraft. Hopefully, with it though, a lot of people will have a lot of fun with it. I know a lot of people are looking forward to it. Here's the sound of the gun. The gun itself is going to do a ton of damage when you're using it, which will be really nice. But I just really hope that it will be what a lot of people have been asking for. I'm sure it will. You can see the maneuverability of the missile, and it's not, as I said, even fully put in yet. Like, it's going to be a really fun vehicle to use. I'm sure a lot of people are going to have a great time with it. I'm sure generally a lot of top tier players are going to play it and use the Draken to get it and have a bit of fun. And you can see the extreme maneuverability that this thing has for a top tier jet, even with it pulling crazy Gs. The furthest I've been able to turn this thing is 16 Gs, but then it starts ripping. So around about 10 to 11 should be completely fine on it and should work pretty decently. Just got to be a little bit careful of other factors, such as, you know, such as things. Let's see. It's not going to track because it lost track, which is kind of sad, but it should be all right. But yeah, the maneuverability of the vehicle is good, the acceleration's good, the guns are good, the missiles are good. The only downside or disadvantage is the fact that it won't get access to anything close to a defensive capability. So as long as you're okay with that. Oh, by the way, this thing does have leading tracking on it, which is pretty cool. Fortunately, I can't show it with that guy. It does open up a little bit late, I would say, compared to other vehicles. It's not, you know, the worst in the world. It's overall not too shabby. You can just run it around, have a good time with it. I'm sure in the meta which we have at this moment in time, which is the meta of close attack vehicles, you know, the F5s and then stuff like that moving in, and it should work pretty well in that regard. You can see the lead indicator there on that vehicle. So yeah, here's the Viggen. Maybe it's the next step in technology when it comes to semi-active homing radar stuff. Maybe it's just another cog in the machine of War Thunder. It really depends on how aggressive it can be and how people can use it when it comes to the battlefield. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.